So, welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I am Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me I got not an RPG horror story, but more of a comment, reaction, discussion video. I'm not fully sure what this is. I received a comment recently on one of my videos regarding D&D and metagaming. I guess TTRPGs and metagaming. I didn't want to write a book of a response, so I decided I'll just do a video instead. Plus, the comment made me think about metagaming in TTRPGs, and I sort of wanted to kind of throw my thoughts out there. Let's go ahead and get to reading the comment first before we begin. Also, just to make sure I'm as clear as possible, this is not a harassment or a targeted thing. Nobody harass or target the person in question. This is a discussion and a reply to a comment. Just want to make sure I get it out of the way because I do not support that. We here at Tales Tomorrow do not harass, okay? I never understood the complaint of players knowing or looking up stats as a GM. If I'm building an encounter that is relying on the fact that players don't know trolls have the regeneration trait and is only stopped by fire and radiant damage, I'd consider that to be a terrible encounter. An encounter should be able to work with everyone having perfect knowledge of each side, since that allows players to make calculated tactical choices and also has the benefit of no one having to worry about if using Firebolt on a troll is going to get them called out for metagaming. It's a bit of a long comment, but I say we just break it down piece by piece and kind of just go from there. I never understood the complaint of players knowing or looking up stats as a GM. Well, I mean, duh, that just spoils the encounter. Let's say you got cooking up a really cool encounter that you want to be able to surprise your players by. Maybe they never anticipated dealing with, I don't know, 4 earth elementals out of nowhere. Or maybe you have like a sea serpent or another large monstrosity that you have cooked up right under the table waiting for your players to be able to encounter it as the final boss in a dungeon or something. And right as you're excited to have players react to the encounter and different twists and turns, but suddenly the players know every weakness of your opponent and every low stat so they can abuse the save rolls and the weaknesses of your enemy, and the encounter is over within 1.5 turns. Wow, what an interesting encounter that might be. If you can't build a suspense as a DM when it comes to players encountering certain types of enemies later on, or heck, maybe even having a BBEG minion that you've been really excited to bust out, and suddenly players just know perfect strategy on how to take him out, it deflates any sort of risk and any sort of tension, because players just go, oh, it's that guy. Guys, we could just use Thunder against him, and he has a very low charisma score, so we can go ahead and abuse that like crazy. And suddenly the fight goes from something fun and epic and challenging to lasting 2 rounds. Maybe not even that, maybe a round and a half. If you can't have any sort of surprises in your D&D game or any TTRPG game, how can you surprise your players? How can you keep it interesting by throwing out something they would never predict if they can just look up everything and know the perfect strats on how to defeat specific monsters or specific encounters? If I'm building an encounter that is relying on the fact that players don't know trolls have the regeneration trait and is only stopped by fire and radiant damage, I would consider that to be a terrible encounter. Is that not a common way to put up a fight that's interesting or zany? Throwing out a mechanic that your players never faced in order to, really crank up that challenge. Or throw a specific type of monster or monsters at your players in order to give them a different challenge, a different feel to break up the monotony of everyday combat. Now, it doesn't have to be necessarily troll whatsoever, that's fine. You can choose anything else other than a troll. But if your players know what every single troll is weak to, then there is no more challenge to fighting a troll. Let's maybe take something else entirely different. Maybe, I don't know, an Earth Golem. Earth Golems are notorious for having a weakness to thunder. Also, they have a very low intelligence and charisma score. If your players were to abuse their vulnerability of thunder and constantly doing saving throws against intelligence and charisma, they could easily battle this guy down. No problem. Throw in some magical weapons and even your melee characters can easily bash this thing down. The idea of fighting an Earth Elemental, especially for a party for the first time that maybe have never fought an Earth Elemental, is be able to surprise them that this thing is strong, it's healthy, it's resistant to regular non-magical weapons, and is able to even burrow underground and surprise casters out of nowhere. If players knew exactly how to take down every single monster at every single encounter, well, guess what? Suddenly, even something like this doesn't become a challenge at all. there is no threat, there is no stakes, and if there's no stakes, there's no excitement. If there's no excitement, the game gets boring. And if the game boils down to just going on D&D Beyond and looking at the monster and figuring out its weaknesses and just letting everybody know, oh yeah, hey guys, this guy's completely weak to thunder, just spam shatter at it. Then at that point, you just simply boil down the counter to simple steps and try to, I don't know, I guess speedrun the encounter? Let's say you're playing an RPG, pick any, and you reach a point in a fight where a boss goes from phase 1 to phase 2. And maybe, let's say, for example, you never knew the boss even had a phase 2 from the very beginning, and suddenly you have a lot more exciting encounters to go over. Actually, I had my own personal experience with that just recently. I was playing Elder Scrolls Online with somebody. There's an event going on. Long story short, you have to go fight a bandit to retrieve a thing. The boss started off as a regular encounter using only a few abilities, but suddenly, right before the boss died, it turned into a werewolf, and the boss went from having 1 special attack to having 4 or 5 special attacks. It was a surprise, and it was an exciting surprise because suddenly the stakes were higher. I'm suddenly, instead of fighting against a regular guy, I'm fighting against a werewolf with crazy cool mechanics that could hurt a lot. I have to play a lot careful, I have to play a lot safer, I have to focus on defensive play rather than offensive play. We have minions spawning on the side, some players are trying to take him out, some players are dying to encounters, and then you finally caught yourself in a storm where suddenly the fight went from basic, easy, boring to something more exciting. It raised the stakes, it made me more invested in a fight. It made me want to play better and do better and be able to complete the fight entirely. Now imagine if I knew the fight ahead of time, then I guess I would still do the fight anyway. I just complete it a lot faster because I'd know ahead of time what the boss is gonna do, and I wouldn't have to worry about playing so defensively as much and just be able to speedrun the health bar all the way down. Let's be honest, some people like to play video games and like to take on challenging encounters for the sake of the numbers. They don't care for the experience. They don't care for the gravitas, the investment. They just want to be able to have higher numbers against the enemy numbers and be able to blow somebody out of smithereens. That's your playstyle, that's completely fine. But I'm saying in a TTRPG sense, if there's no stakes, if there's no rewards, high risk, high rewards, if there's no risk because you already know what's going to happen in the encounter, then the reward doesn't taste any closer to being so sweet. Hi, this is Editing Morrow, recording and filling this in at 2 in the morning, and I don't feel like putting my body on. Yes, I'm very shiny. It looks like I'm covered in Vaseline or oil. Can't fix it right now. One of the biggest formulas when it comes to having an encounter is treating it almost like a puzzle. It becomes a combat puzzle. Half of the combat puzzle is all about the strategy and different tactics and swapping tactics in case the first ones don't work, and then the other half is luck, because random dice rolling game will roll very funny math rocks in order to see if you get high numbers or low numbers. If the player characters are facing something new that none of them have seen, it allows them to be able to start experimenting and treating the counter not just a regular numbers encounter, but as a combat puzzle of sorts. As they're fighting, they're going to be able to determine whether the enemy has certain resistances, like can get a specific type of weapon or a specific type of spell, or maybe the enemy has vulnerabilities, trying out different spells on the enemy to see if what works or what doesn't work. If you want players to have a specific knowledge about a specific type of enemy before just having players just, oh, just look it up on D&D Beyond, guys, have them learn it through player characters in a more interactive way through your campaign. Maybe some helpful NPC gives them very important information or a clue towards a specific weakness the enemy may have. Maybe they'll learn it through important study or research or reconnaissance. Instead of having players Google this stuff or trying to look anything up on D&D Beyond on how to counter all your biggest monsters and challenges, you could just have them learn diegetically and see how they incorporate this sort of stuff diegetically, naturally, within the storyline of your game. If your players cannot be surprised by brand new encounters because you allow them to look up stat blocks and metagame strategies that can make the fights trivial, then there's no longer any challenge in combat. If there's no challenge in combat, there is no fun in combat. If the combat is not fun, combat is boring. And if the combat is boring, then why would your players even care to be part of the combat in the first place? Imagine you want to read a book, but you found a synopsis online that tells about the entire plot of the book verbatim. Or you want to watch a movie, but you watch a movie summary video before you even watch the movie in the first place. Or you want to play a game, but you already watch a walkthrough of somebody else playing through a game. So now nothing at all in the book the movie or the game can surprise you. I don't know about you, but if I spoil something for myself ahead of time, I'm gonna be less excited doing that thing, no matter if it's a book, a movie, video game, or a TTRPG encounter. You can even take it to not even combat in TTRPGs. Let's say there's a puzzle, right? But you just let your players look up the answer to the puzzle so they can solve it easily. Let's say you need to find a specific NPC that is a traitor to the kingdom, and you just look up online to see who the NPC is, and suddenly finding that NPC becomes trivial. If you're letting your players metagame just the combat part, why would they not want to metagame everything else at that point? If you're encouraging metagaming, let's say you're playing a module, whether it be Curse to Strahd, Waterdeep Dragon Heist, whatever, you name it, you need to find a specific NPC that's important for the quest. Why would you speak to any of the NPCs around? We could just go to the direct location and find the guy you're looking for, because hey, guess what, you metagamed and you found online who the guy exactly is and where to find him. You see what I mean? When you metagame and you know everything that's going to be going up ahead, then you sort of take away any sort of fun, thrill, excitement from anything. There's nothing for you to look forward to, and instead you just basically just looking up a guide for everything, whether it be a stat block or answers to a puzzle, and it just takes away any sort of excitement. Metagaming is what we call in the industry a slippery slope. You allow it once and it begins to ruin everything else afterwards, because it's kind of like a domino effect where everything sort of tumbles and falls, and there is no more excitement, there is no more mystery, there's no more things to look forward to if you already know what's up ahead and how to deal with it every single time. Metagaming just makes things boring. Also, I found a version of the avatar that apparently is not covered in oil, which I had no idea even had. If you have nothing new to the players to throw in that they don't already know about, you can't surprise the players and you can't challenge them, because at that point the combat just becomes a numbers game and seeing who wins initiative first. If your players win initiative first and they know every weakness and how to exploit your enemies, then the combat becomes trivial. And since you want every side to have perfect knowledge of the other side, I'm assuming you'll be able to pin enemies that perfectly counter your players. Well, guess what? If the enemies win that initiative, your players are shit out of luck. If your entire fight composition is just a counter versus a counter, at that point, it's an initiatives game. I do want to be fair and say that if, let's say, you prefer stat block lookup ahead of time on your encounters and your players also prefer that, you do whatever you want at your table. It is up to you and your players to have fun the way y'all want to have fun. I don't think it's a good idea to metagame encounters, but that's just one Tiefling's opinion. If you want to voice your opinion about metagaming in D&D or TTRPGs, feel free to do that in comment section below. And with that, we'll conclude our fireside to chat with Morrow. I don't know what this is. I never done this before. I just wanted to make a video. Anyway, bye.